This is an Ortgies 7.65mm pistol, aka 32 ACP. I'm going to be changing out the springs with a new spring kit from Wolff, which includes springs for the magazines. And I also purchased a new firing pin for it, a reproduction firing pin, because as is all too common the case with these pistols, the original firing pin was broken. So let's get started. First, we'll verify that the pistol is unloaded. One thing to note with this pistol does not have a hold open, so you can open it and it will not stay there. So let's remove the other magazine and we'll pop the safety out on it, and we'll move this back. Let me make sure that I'm not blocking this camera here. Yeah, let's move these out of the way. So move this back to about here, push in on that. There it is. Okay, that comes loose. There it is. There is the, make sure I get in the light, the firing pin, the original firing pin, and its spring, and the slide, recoil spring, which we will remove and set aside. Remove the barrel. Next, we will remove the grips, which is almost impossible to show on camera. But we reach in here and we depress the release device in here. I think there we go. There comes one of them. This one is, I think, is a little bit tight. Probably end up breaking a nail. There it goes. Okay, that slips and slid all over the place, but we got it off. Life is good. Set the grips aside. The next objective is to remove this pin right here, which holds the safety in place, and remove it from the frame. Into the hole. There we go. There that is. There's the pin. Set it aside. Okay, a little bit of off-camera work here, figuring out how this works. You have to get it started off the bottom here, and if it's been engaged, you have to disengage it by pressing this. And since the recoil spring is out of it, you have to move this up manually like that. But now that it's at this stage, you just take it like that, and that thing pops right out like that and lands on the floor, fortunately. And then there is the safety lever, and here is the recovered takedown button and its spring. Next, we need to remove the magazine catch and the grip latch, which are all powered by the same spring. That little pin right there has to be removed, and then we'll see if we can get this on here. I don't know if you can see down in there or not, but if you can, there is a spring down in there that actuates both. So we will drive that pin out and disassemble that next. Okay, let's pray to Goddess that we don't bounce the spring all over the place while we drive it out here. Okay, the pin is out. We'll set it aside. And then I'm going to just sort of put my finger on top of this while I remove this, so that when this comes apart, yes, we don't have a surprise like we did last time. And now we have the spring just sort of rolls out of there. This is the magazine catch. There's the spring right there. And then this is the latch for the grips. The next objective is to get the sear and the disconnector out of here. And this is the sear. And down underneath here, and again, I don't know if you can see it or not, but right down underneath there is a flat spring that is not part of the replacement kit. And caution is needed not to screw that spring up. But it comes out of there and just sort of rotates out from what I am reading. So let's see what happens here. All right, according to the original manual, it says to grasp this like this and just pull it in and up. And that does. Being careful of that spring. There we go. There it is. How about that? Nothing particularly complicated about that at all. And out it comes. And there's that little itty bitty disconnector spring. And there, see, will that focus? It's a little guy. And the left, I think, is the actual trigger, which I believe you just knock that out there. Okay. Okay, there that is. There is the trigger pin, which we will set aside away from that. And make sure we don't have any springy surprises here. We'll hold that like that while we remove this, because there's a plunger in here too, from what I'm reading. Now we just, okay. That's supposed to just rotate out of there. And the rotation isn't really happening. There we go. All right. Yeah, I can see that little guy in there. Okay, rotate, rotate, rotate. And there is the trigger plunger and its spring. I'll set that over there. And coming back to the slide, I'm going to remove the firing pin assembly with its pin, and then we have to drive. Where is this thing? Hopefully this comes out on the camera. There's a pin right there, a little skinny guy that we drive upward so that it comes out the top, so that we can remove the extractor, and there is a spring involved with that. I've been using a 3/32 inch punch for everything else, but for this guy I got out the 2/32, act out 1/16, because this is a little skinny guy. I'll put him on here, and I suppose I should probably put that on the block. That there, and tap, 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 tap. What do we have going here? There it is. Oh, it comes right out. Now that is a little itty bitty guy, so let's not lose him. I want to set him over there. Okay, and I'm going to grab this. I don't think there's anything significant here, but I just don't want any surprises. I pull that out and relieve the extractor. Okay, the extractor. I don't like surprises when I disassemble a firearm that I'm not familiar with. You pull that out, and yes, there's a little itty bitty spring right down in there that is, looks like it's a little bit dirty. And that completes the disassembly of the pistol. It is completely broken down and everything has been removed from it. And all the parts are numbers matching, which is nice. So I'm going to reassemble it with the new springs after I clean some things up. The pistol is completely reassembled. The only real sticking point was reinstalling the trigger and its plunger. That was a little bit tricky to do. I had to maneuver it around with one hand and use a tool and keep the plunger pressed down and get it underneath where it was supposed to go. There wasn't really any way I could have filmed it, so I didn't bother. But just be aware that it's a little bit difficult, and at one point the plunger and its spring launched out of here, but it was easy enough to re-find. And so now I'm going to do the magazines, the springs in the magazines. Actually, I've already done one. Now we're going to redo the spring in this magazine, and it's rather easy to do, but although it's unconventional, take a tool, whatever, and just gently press that down, and then line it up where you can get a little screwdriver or a pin punch or something through it so that it will hold the spring down. Now I advise you do that on the low side because the spring's going to unwind itself up above it a little bit. But once you've done that, then you can I'm going to take it out of here, and and out comes the follower, just a L-shaped piece of metal. And I can put this back in here for the remainder of the work. Now here comes the fun part. If you like, stand clear and it takes itself out. I'm going to take some carbon choke cleaner here and I'm going to spray it in here. Can's almost empty, but just to get everything good and cleaned out. And actually it's pooled up there in the bottom. Let me take that, dump it out here. And pro tip, if you have painted nails, watch out for this stuff, it'll strip them. And let's get this off. And free up the new spring. Now, if there was ever a place on a firearm to use good old WD-40, the inside of a magazine is it. It will help protect against rust. It won't gum anything up as long as you've cleaned it out ahead of time anyway. So I put just a little bit of WD in these. And not a lot, but just a little bit. Okay, and then again, just like that other stuff, the cleaner, you get a little bit of excess in the bottom. Take it off camera and dump it out. And that looks pretty clean down there. Put this back in, put it in this way. Okay, here is the new spring. Make sure that you have it angled correctly. Work it in, da-da-da-da-da. And then what I do, similar way as before. There we go. Alright, now we put the pin block in here. If there's anything to keep that from coming in. And then not block the camera, put that in like that. Rotate it over, slide it back. Let it drop down there. There it is. The new, move it up and down a couple of times, distribute that WD around a little bit. Done. One final word on this. These things are notorious for breaking firing pins if they're dry fired, like a lot of older pistols are, although not quite as bad as a T14 Nambu. But I will show you a quick trick here. If you cock the pistol, and I'll take this point in time to show how that is now safe, but once it's squeezed in, it stays in the firing position. But be that as it may, if you want to discharge a spring-loaded firing pin, take a pencil, and this will just fit up a .32 caliber barrel. Hold it all the way up against the firing pin. That gives it something to hit, and you can remove it, and you won't break your firing pin that way. And over here in the corner is the old broken firing pin and all of the old springs that were removed from the gun and magazines. I will hold on to those until after I go to the range, just in case. After that, they will go into the metal recycling bin. This is the next day, and it pleases me to announce that the Ortgies pistol fired 50 rounds just fine, so I can go ahead and recycle the springs, the old springs in that old firing pin. And I shot this at 25 feet, otherwise known as 8 1/3 yards. And I did a kind of comparison between that and my Walther PP, which is also chambered in 32 ACP. As you can see here, I shot a little bit better with the PP than I did with the Ortgies for whatever reason. And also, lastly, not that it has anything to do with this, but also, since I have it here, I took my Ruger Mark III 22 and I shot it at the same distance, 25 yards, with the results you can see here. And that is all that I know. God bless this mess.